Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our HR for UK Friday webinar. I'm just going to give a few moments for everybody who has registered to join me, and I can see those attendees joining in as I speak. So I'll give them a few moments to make sure that you are logged in, you're comfortable, and you're ready for an hour's long worth of webinar of me talking to you about a couple of things. First of all, just a quick update on furlough scheme, because there's some great news that is coming through. But then, of course, focusing on what the webinar is all about today, and that is overcoming the challenges of managing remote teams, particularly when we hear what is going on in the news at the moment with threatened local lockdowns and the three-tier traffic light system in terms of local lockdowns. I think we all need to be realistic and be prepared that we may need to go back to remote working. So yes, hold on to your seats as we get to that. So I can see that we've got most of our attendees on, so I will crack on and share all this information with you. So of course today is Friday the 9th of October, and today's webinar is overcoming the challenges of managing remote workers. So HR for UK is a leading provider with HR and employment law support. We also provide payroll and pension support, health and safety services. So we really are your all-rounded organisation that can help you with all your HR issues and much, much more. We've got over 30 years of experience, and don't take my view on it. Go and visit our website, which is www.hr4uk, and go and read our 5-star reviews and find out for yourselves what our clients have got to say about the services that HR for UK have provided to them. So of course you've got me this afternoon. I'm Angela Clay, and I am an employment law solicitor, and of course I am Managing Director of HR for UK, and I'm responsible for HR for UK's role in leading organisations like yours through this pandemic crisis and much further beyond that, but providing you with professional legal help and support. And of course we support all UK businesses. So let's just have a quick look at what we're going to cover today. As I said earlier on, my Friday webinars would not be the same without a furlough update. And of course, there's quite a lot going on there. So, I know sometimes it feels like I'm repeating myself, but it is always good practice just to remind everybody where we are as things are progressing and developing. So today we are going to cover how to manage a remote team and how it differs from having a team within an office, and how you will have a team working from home. How businesses can improve their remote management skills, because that's quite a different skill to what you would have when you would normally have face-to-face discussions. And the importance of building team spirit. It's the importance of having that culture that is you have developed within your organisation to make sure that that continues no matter where anybody is working. So really important. And to create a performance culture and target setting, which again can sometimes slip through the net when people aren't around. But remote working should not prevent that from happening, and you should still be able to carry on doing that. And of course, the most important bit, I say the most important bit, of course, all of it is important, but it's making sure that your employees who are working remotely, making sure that you safeguard their well-being, because of course, your employees are one of your biggest assets and you need to look after them. As always, you've got the panel on the right-hand side. If you've got any questions, please do ask those questions, and I will answer those questions at the end of the webinar. We are always looking for topics that we can discuss and share knowledge and information with you. So please do let me know what you would like my future webinars to be about, because they are only as helpful and insightful as you want them to be. I can talk all year round on various HR issues and various HR matters, but if they're not of no interest to you, then my webinars, quite frankly, are no interest to you, and I want to make sure that I keep you engaged. So please do pop in the questions, and also do let me know any topics that you would like me to cover at future webinars. As always, you can contact us through our website, which is www.hrforuk.com. You can drop us an email at info@hrforuk.com, or you can give us a call on 01455 444 222, and one of my colleagues would be delighted to be able to help you. So just a quick reminder that this webinar is being recorded, and the questions that do come in, we will collate those at the end. I will give you the answers, but of course, as always, a copy of the recording together with those questions and answers will go out to you during the course of next week. Please don't be shy to ask those questions, because do bear in mind, if you're asking that question, you can be rest assured that there is at least another 1 or 2 people in the webinar who are asking the same question or have the same issue. So do fire away those questions. So for many employers, working from home was suddenly forced upon us with the pandemic. But now, as we come out of it, or we start seeing that we're coming out of it, although the government has flip-flopped and said, you know, come back to work from home, working from home has now become the new norm. And this webinar is going to be covering a lot of sort of tips and hints that will be able to help both those new line managers and also experienced line managers who are having to get to grips with how to manage and motivate remote teams. So our top tips will look at creatively overcoming these challenges, implementing those processes, making sure that you've got a clear communication plan, and investing in your work culture, because that is so important when you are working remotely, and to make sure that you capitalize on the advantages of remote working and effectively lead to grow your team, because that's how you're going to do it. Whilst allowing employees greater flexibility with work-life balance, remote working has proven to reduce operating costs, but not only from a cost perspective, it has actually proven to increase productivity. And therefore, future in investing time, effort, and money in allowing remote teams will make your business succeed and be successful going forward. Steve Kent has sent a quick message, and I'm just going to jump into it. Is there meant to be something on a shared screen? No, there isn't. So Steve, I'm not too sure what you are seeing or hoping to see. If it's the first time that you're joining us and you think there's going to be a shared screen, there won't be, but if you are seeing something, you're probably just seeing some really boring screenshots on my desktop. So I apologize if that is going to be the case. So Steve, I hope that answers. No worries, perfect. I've answered your question. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So let's have a quick roundup on what's going on the various furlough support schemes. We know that the coronavirus job retention scheme is coming to an end. It winds up at the end of October. So that is really about 3 weeks left on that particular scheme. The government, the Chancellor, introduced the new job support scheme, which kicks in from the 1st of November. We've of course got the job retention bonus scheme, which you can apply for from February, and we've got the Kickstart scheme, which is available from the 1st of November. And breaking news today, and I've been waiting very patiently all day, is that there are new measures that are going to be introduced. There is news coming in that the Chancellor is going to announce at some point this afternoon. It's probably going to happen while I'm talking to you, but be rest assured, whatever information comes up, we will share it with you. But the Chancellor has indicated that there is going to be a new local furlough scheme. And of course, as I say, once those guidance comes in, we will share that with you. I do have a little bit of information on it, and as I get to that point, I will share that with you. So let's have a quick look at the final roundup of the current furlough scheme. So we all know that from the 1st of October, we entered the final phase of the scheme, with the government reducing their contribution down to 60%, with the employers having to contribute 20% of the contribution to make sure that employees always receive 80% of their wages for their furloughed hours. Don't forget that furloughed hours are the hours that they do not work. The government cap will of course reduce, and that reduction is down to £1,875 per month per employee that can be claimed. That cap is for the furloughed hours that the employee doesn't work, and of course the cap is proportional to those hours. You will have to continue to pay the furloughed employees' national insurance contributions and the employer auto-enrolment contributions. If you have claimed too much over the last few months, you will need to make sure that you put things right. There's some important deadlines that I would like to share with you. So whenever you make a claim or any claims that you have made, please do check to make sure that the claim is accurate. Any final claim that you're going to be making, make sure that it is accurate before you submit it. It would be a good tip just to double check it before you submit your final claim at the end of the month. So if you have claimed too much and you haven't repaid it, you must notify HMRC. Now, if you are going to still make one final claim at the end of October, you can do it through the final claim. If you've already finished making claims and you're not going to make any more claims, you will need to telephone HMRC to notify them that you have made an overclaimment and get instructions from them on how you can repay that. It's usually a payment direct from your bank account into HMRC's bank account, you know, you will make the payment that way. One thing I will really say is that there are a lot of scams going on at the moment where individuals are purporting to be calling from HMRC. So do be mindful from any unsolicited phone calls that you may get, which may sound a little bit fraudulent. Do always be careful and don't make payments over the phone. HMRC are aware of these scams that are going on, and as part of their sort of literature that they are circulating, they are actually identifying this with people. So just a quick reminder, you know, to yourselves not to become, you know, victim to some crime that can be prevented. So some key dates and information that you need. So if you have claimed too much, the latest date in which you must make that repayment is 90 days from the date you have received the money that you are not entitled to. So that would be if you have erroneously made a claim, that payment has been made and you've discovered that that shouldn't have been made, the clock starts ticking from that point, and that point is 90 days. Another alternative is 90 days from the date when your circumstances change. So if, for example, you were furloughing employees and suddenly you were no longer furloughing them, but you had already submitted your claim preempting that you were going to need it, the time to pay it back starts to tick from that point, and you've got 90 days to put that right. So if you have made an erroneous claim on or before the 22nd of July, you must notify HMRC and repay that money by the 20th of October. So that's not very far away. So if you made a mistake before the 22nd of July, you have to make sure that you make that repayment by the 20th of October. If you don't do this, you risk the you risk the wrath of being named and shamed, but not only that, you will have to pay interest, you will be issued with a penalty fine, and you will also have to repay that grant that you received in error. So, you know, do let HMRC know. As I said, if you still have a claim to make, you can make that through the portal when you make your final claim under the current scheme. So that's the furlough scheme as we know it, and that will be the last time that I will give you any update on the furlough scheme as we have it ending at the 31st of October. But of course, you know, if there has been any extension, depending on how the Chancellor is going to introduce the new scheme, it may be a hardline close on the existing scheme, or it might be a variation of it. But of course, as soon as we know that detailed information, I will be in contact and let you know. But the new job support scheme comes into effect from the 1st of November. A key thing to remember, this is a new scheme. It's brand new. So the rules are brand new. The rules are different to the furlough scheme. So there are some changes. I do still speak to some clients who are still referring to the new job support scheme as the furlough scheme. And I know we are talking about furlough hours, which is hours that employees aren't going to work. But please, please don't get confused between the two schemes, because you might find yourself falling a bit short in applying the wrong rules to the wrong scheme. So let's just have a quick look at the new job support scheme. So this is the scheme that is to support people in work. So these are our employees that you've brought off of furlough. It's almost an extension of the flexi furlough scheme, but there is a requirement that employees work a minimum of 33% of their normal working hours. Now, their normal working hours are their contractual hours that were in place before the coronavirus hit us. So you've got to cast your mind back, right back to January, February of this year, what their normal hours looked like at that point in time. But the job support scheme is an alternative to giving employers the option to bringing people back into work on shorter hours rather than making them redundant. But of course, those roles need to be viable roles, because you need to be able to give them at least a third of their normal working hours. So employees will work, as I say, at least a third of their working hours. The government will top up and pay a third of their furlough hours, and the employer will also have to top up a third of those hours not worked. The employee will also have to give up some of their wages to compensate for the hours that they are not working. The new scheme is open to all employees. It doesn't matter whether or not they weren't on the previous furlough scheme. So again, you remember from previously, we had certain deadlines and cutoffs for individuals to be able to be eligible to be put into the scheme, and that is irrelevant to the current scheme. But there are still cutoff dates that you need to be aware of. So do bear that in mind. The new scheme is going to run for 6 months, and as I say, it'll be starting on the 1st of November through to April of next year. So the employers who are going to be using the support scheme can still benefit from the retention bonus. Because you are taking the support scheme doesn't mean that you cannot apply for that bonus, and I'll touch on the bonus scheme again. So the new support scheme is open to all SMEs, although larger organisations will have to go through a financial assessment. So your bigger companies who have got more than 250 employees and who have turnover, I think it's between 6 and 50 million pounds, you will need to demonstrate that your turnover has suffered a loss as a result of the coronavirus before you will be able to participate in the job support scheme. All employers will have to have a UK bank account, and you will also have to operate a UK PAYE scheme. So, the scheme is, as I say, it's a brand new scheme. So even companies who did not use the furlough scheme will also be able to use this new scheme. So just because you didn't use the previous scheme doesn't mean you can't use it. It's quite the opposite. It is opening the doors for you to be able to use it. So employees must have been on your PAYE on or before the 23rd of September. And you must have submitted real-time information to HMRC in relation to that employee. This means that if you employed someone after the 23rd of September and you haven't submitted that real-time information submission to HMRC, that particular employee will not be able to be put onto the job support scheme. So there are some restrictions, and that is one of them. So if you have taken on new employees, you will not be able to use the scheme for them. If employees were on your PAYE on or before the 23rd of September and you have submitted that real-time information, then they will be able to participate, and you will be able to cycle employees on and off of the scheme. So again, it has that benefit where you have fluctuating weeks and you'll be able to ensure that you can benefit from it. There doesn't have to be the same working pattern for each month. So again, 1 week to the next can be different, 1 month to the next can be different. However, where there is a period of short time working, it must be for a minimum of 7 days. So the grant that you will get in relation to the job support scheme, it will cover a third of those non-working hours that you will get from the government. There is a cap, and that cap is £697.92 per month per employee. And again, the government contribution is relevant to the number of hours that the employee is not working. But you as an employer will be responsible for your third. Of course, you will be responsible for paying the employees hours that they do in fact work, so those 33% of their hours. But you will also have to continue paying the national insurance contributions and the auto enrolment contribution, so that will remain the same. A key thing on the job support scheme is that you cannot make an employee redundant, and you also cannot serve notice while the employee is on that scheme. So if you're in consultation, you can keep them on, but if you have served notice or the employee is working out their notice, you cannot have them on the scheme. So just a little bit of forward planning. If you are going to have to go down that route, do bear in mind that you will need to put your employee onto normal working hours for a pay period, so that when HMRC sees the RTR submission, they can see that the employee has come off of the scheme. So a little bit of forward planning will be required with that. Claims can be made through the same way as before, that you will make the claim online. Do bear in mind that the scheme only opens on the 1st of November, and successful claims will be paid in arrears on a monthly basis. Now, the portal where you'll be able to make this claim will only open in December, so don't try and go onto it at the 1st of November and wonder where it is, because it will not be there. It will only, the gateway will only open from the 1st of December. And the reason for that is the difference between the two schemes is that this is going to be a reimbursement of those costs rather than an upfront payment to be able to cover those payroll periods. So another sort of significant difference between the furlough scheme and the new job support scheme. And the payments will need to be made by you as the employer first, so you will need to make sure that you can actually fund that payment. And I should imagine it will have quite an impact on cash flow, so do bear that in mind if you are going to be using the scheme. So as with the furlough scheme, you are going to have to go through a process to agree this. One fundamental difference between the furlough scheme and this scheme is under furlough, it was the employer's choice and decision. The employee had very little say in that. But on the job support scheme, you will need to go through a process to get that agreement. So employees and employers must agree the short-term working arrangements with their employees. And any changes must be reflected by an agreement, and this agreement must be in writing. And of course, that agreement must be kept and made available to HMRC if they are going to be carrying out an audit. So this is really a clear message to make sure that you go through a proper process by discussing the terms with the employees, making sure that you get their agreement before you put them onto the scheme. As with all previous schemes that we've been on, HR for UK will be providing you with an agreement that you can use for the job support scheme. It's not available yet. We are currently waiting for the final guidance from the government and the Treasury directions to be published before we finalise that. But be rest assured, we will get that document available to you as soon as we have the final detail, so that we don't end up flip-flopping around in changing that agreement as information becomes available. So I mentioned earlier the job retention bonus scheme. This is £1,000 per eligible employee, and there are some conditions that need to be met. It is a once-off payment for each successfully furloughed employee. They have to have been previously furloughed, and they do need to be on your payroll with the PAYE RTR submission made on the 31st of January of 2021. So the conditions to get that £1,000 bonus is obviously the employee still needs to be employed with you. They need to have been properly furloughed in accordance with the job retention scheme, and you need to have made successful claims for that particular employee. The employee must have been continuously employed with you until at least the 31st of January, and don't forget they should not be serving notice or have been, whether that be from a resignation or whether you are making them redundant, they must not be in their notice period. But they must of course have received an average of £520 per month between the 1st of November and the 31st of January. That £520 does not have to be every month, it's an average, as long as by the 31st of January they have received at least £1,560. And of course you need to make sure that you've had those RTR submissions. Again, how that you'll be able to claim that. This will be an online portal where you'll be able to make an application for that bonus scheme. I understand that the portal will only be open, or claims applications can only be made from around about the 15th of February, with payments to be made by the 31st of March. So it will be in the current financial year. And of course, there's no limit on how many applications you make, as long as you satisfy the criteria. We also have the Kickstart scheme, which is starting as of the 1st of November. It's open to all organisations, all employers across the UK, and the Kickstart scheme will cover 100% of national minimum wage for a minimum of 25 hours per week, aimed at young workers between the ages of 16 and 24. These are people who are currently on the universal credit system and who face the risk of being in long-term unemployment. There is a requirement that there is no extensive training that they need to undertake before coming to work for you. It is a job placement, so whilst they are there, you will have to support the candidates by helping them develop their skills and experience, so that they will be able to find work after the scheme, after they've participated in the scheme. So HR for UK are here to help you, in being able to demonstrate how are you going to support those candidates. And we will be providing basic webinars throughout the 6-month placement period, which will cover employment law matters. It will cover basic company matters. It will cover creating and remaining in a positive culture in the workplace, CV preparation, and of course interview techniques, which we'll provide. I know that we have had lots of interest in people wanting to find out about the Kickstart scheme, because of course if you have only 1 or 2 placements, you need to find an organisation that can act as a group administrator. We are your group administrator. We are here to help you. So do get in contact with us. I know we have a list of people who have expressed interest. We have sent out some information that we will need from you, but during the course of next week, our advisors will be getting in contact with you to help you through that process, to help gather that information, so that we can make sure we can get the application in, so that you can get your Kickstart candidates allocated to you as quickly as possible. Of course, you need to say allocated to you. With the Kickstart scheme, you will be presented with suitable candidates, but the decision who you want to hire and who you want to take on as that placement is your decision. So do make sure that you have a clear vision in your mind on what that candidate is going to look like. Bearing in mind we're dealing with young people, they wouldn't have much job experience. These are young people between the ages of 16 and 24. So just to recap, you'll get 100% of national minimum wage for a minimum of 25 hours per week. The government will also pay the associated national insurance contributions and the employer minimum auto enrolment contributions. There will also be a bonus. I say bonus, it's not a bonus. There will also be a one-off payment of £1,500 to assist you with the setup costs and to help you with support and training. So once you've set the individual up, you run them through your RTR portal, you will then start getting the funding. So again, like the job support scheme, it is a refund rather than money upfront supporting you going forward. So let's just have a quick look, because I'm quite conscious that I've spent half this webinar talking about updating you where we are, but let's just have a look at the new, and I'm going to refer to it as the new local furlough scheme. It may come out with a different name. That is the terminology that has been knocked around and that is sort of filtering through, which is a new furlough scheme. As I said earlier, I do not know if it is going to be an extension to the existing furlough scheme with restricted information that will, will allow you to be able to participate in it, or whether it is going to be a completely separate and new scheme, a bit like the job support scheme. So again, I don't know any information, but what I can share with you is that the purpose of putting this together is to make sure that businesses who might need to close in the coming weeks due to other government policies that are implemented, employers might not be able to have their employees at work. So this is why it has been referred to as a local furlough scheme. I think primarily it is aimed at hospitality, in the hospitality industry, who will have to close. But it may well be that businesses will be going into a local lockdown where employees will not be able to come into work because of that imposition, because of those limitations that are implemented, which will have a knock-on effect. So again, the details on how it's going to work, we don't know at this point in time, because we don't know how the government is going to be able to really identify which areas this is going to apply to. So the devil will be in the detail. The scheme is, meant to subsidise furloughed hours. So again, if we go into a local total lockdown, it'll be for all their hours, but a percentage of that. Again, the devil is in the detail. Some reports we are getting is that they will pay 1/3. Other reports are saying that the government will pay 80%. We don't know. The Chancellor hasn't announced this, so do keep your eyes open for our email that will come out to you giving the specific details. But this, we do know that this new financial support scheme will be for a 6-month, so it's a 6-month plan with a 3-month review. Now, how this is going to work, it might work in conjunction with the new support scheme. The time frames seem to coincide, but I think we will just have to wait for that detail to come out. We do not know what, if any, contributions the employer will have to make, because of course, if we are forced to close our doors and there is no income coming in, we are going to have to look at that. So that is all I have on the new job support scheme. I'm anticipating that more information will come out while I am in my webinar today, but as I say, do look out for that all-important email that will come out to you. So let's have a look at today's webinar. So today's webinar is overcoming the challenges of managing remote teams. So under normal working conditions, cultivating a positive culture can be both challenging within itself. Making it, trying to do that remotely adds an additional layer of complexity, and it makes it more difficult when you have a dispersed workforce to make sure that everybody is still singing from the same hymn sheet and everybody is still, shares that same unified vision of the company. So by making sure that you're able to still do that, you must make sure that you have a proper strategy in place on how you're going to do this. And that strategy includes having open lines of communication, the right set of digital tools that you are going to use to make sure that you can fuel that positive culture that boosts employee satisfaction, which ultimately has a positive impact, which encourages each employee to reach their peak performance, which of course will have a positive impact on the organisation. So we all know that with COVID-19, the pandemic presented us with a watershed moment in having to, accelerate remote working at an unprecedented rate. We know that, there's always been this sort of, I'm not sure it's going to work for our organisation, but it has certainly shown that, businesses can operate with remote workers. But you have to go further than that, because you have to actually instill that work culture within the workplace to make sure that it follows through from not just being in the office, but it follows through when the individuals go remotely. So during the pandemic, as I said, we have actually shown that remote working has had an indisputable upside. We've obviously kept staff safe, but there are other benefits that have come out as a result of it, such as cost savings in terms of office overheads. There is a much greater work-life balance. Employee satisfaction has increased, and there is an uptick in productivity, which obviously has a knock-on effect on improved retention. Now, I appreciate that this is quite sensitive in terms of those employees who have lost their jobs as a result of COVID-19 and the various measures that have to be put in place. But I'm talking about your core workers here, your core employees who are left, and you are working with them on a remote basis. But achieving these benefits is more than simply just handing an employee a laptop and offering them, network access. It has to go much more, it has to go beyond that. Working from home may have been an interim solution, but it may be that you are looking at as an ongoing offering. And you need to go that extra mile to fuel that organisational culture when your workforce is dispersed. So it sounds a lot more complicated than what it is, but when you have a look at some simple things, which I'm going to talk you through, we will be able to have a look at that. Because of course, culture just isn't centered about lunches or office gyms or, the interaction with being in the office. It's about the character of your workplace. It's about how your employees come together to meet goals. It's the tone of your line manager. It's the internal messaging and values that is embodied by your senior leadership team, by your managing director, by your business owner. It's their values that cascade down to the team. That is what culture is all about. And you'll often talk about a cycle where you are talking about your values, the business owner values, which is filtered down to the employee values. If they share those same values, it then has a knock-on effect on the customer, the client. The client then gets that vibe of a happy, employee. They have a good experience. They then share it with their colleague, with their suppliers and other people they know, which then ultimately benefits the business. And of course, if your business benefits, then you're going to benefit. So there is this cycle that you constantly have to have a look at, and it really does make a big difference. And making sure that you take that cycle and you clone it for your remote workers is so important, because you don't want to let that cycle slip just because you don't have presenteeism, you don't have people in the workplace. So whether you have to close your business unexpectedly because of a local lockdown, or whether it's something that you're thinking, well, actually, this has worked quite well, and we're not going to be reopening the office place, and we're going to be going remotely. So again, it's making sure that you take that culture and use that as the glue to keep your organization together whilst your team are working remotely. The starting point is having a comprehensive communication strategy. Communication is key. Having the right digital tools to be able to deliver this, and I know I'm talking about digital platforms, because don't forget, the people that you're going to be dealing with are not in the office, so you have to find another way to be able to communicate that. So having the right set of digital tools, and you need to demonstrate your commitment. So from you know, the top, leading from your management team, filters down to show your commitment to your employees, which paves the way for an unprecedented organizational culture, whether that is in the office or outside of the office. So it's really, really important. So, you know, making sure that, you know, you have these strategies in place, it will filter through. So businesses, you know, it's not going to be without challenge. So I'm just going to have a look at 5 key areas where you need to focus, where sometimes I think when you are dealing with remote workers, people who are not there, you forget or perhaps don't have in your forefront that these issues are real issues of concerns. So the areas I'm going to have a look at. So isolation. Isolation can be a very, very solitary experience. So without communication opportunities, without social features for those remote workers, can really make an individual feel even more isolated. Remote working, don't forget, is not for everybody. So it's your responsibility to make sure that you have a strategy in place to make sure that you effectively communicate with your remote workers, making sure that they don't feel isolated and alone. Very, very important. We're going to have a look at productivity. So, you know, driving efficiency in a remote workforce requires a new approach. And you need to make sure that you have access where you can all access together to be able to drive that productivity. Some, you know, discussions that have, you know, was really like, so for example, if you're having creative discussions, when you're all in a room, you get that creative buzz that you know, bounces off of everybody. When you're working remotely, you lose an element of that. So you need to make sure that you don't, you have measures in place and mechanisms in place to make sure that you don't lose that productivity with your remote workforce. Keeping morale up is also very key. It's easy to let enthusiasm dwindle when a worker feels removed from the bigger picture. So keeping morale up is also very, very key. Keep the momentum going. Keep the bigger picture alive. Keep the bigger picture in their forefront so they know where they are working towards, regardless of what their individual role is. You know, morale, you know, is really important. It just takes one person to have their morale dwindle and it spreads like wildfire. Suddenly you have a whole team whose morale is really low. And that can be prevented by making sure that you keep those communications open. You have those, you know, that key strategy, that communication strategy in your forefront. Making sure that you collaborate. You know, knowledge sharing is critical for any innovation. And because you're going to be sharing knowledge, you may need to look at different ways of doing this, because of course you are going to need to look at ways that you can share that knowledge so collaboration can take place, so that you can make sure that you fuel your remote working team, so giving them everything that they need, you know, to be able to do their job. And of course, access to everybody, making sure that everything is accessible for everybody. Also bearing in mind, you know, making sure that it is, you know, it is critical to make sure that everybody who is reliant on technology that you're going to be implementing understands how to use it. So it's all fine and well saying, here's this brilliant platform you're going to be using, and we're going to require you to use it. But if you don't provide that training on how to use that platform, you know, you're going to soon lose that, you know, engagement with that individual. And don't forget, people learn at different ways. We have different people who have different familiarity with technology. If you're like me, I'm a bit of a dinosaur, and I struggle with new platforms. But once I understand it, I'm a whiz. And then I've got other work colleagues who it just comes naturally, and they are always the ones that I turn to help me. And every organization has the same mixture of people. So again, you know, make sure that you have accessibility to everybody. So I'm going to drill down a little bit more into the little areas that I was talking about, and I'm really conscious of the time. So if anybody does need to, you know, dip off, you know, this is being recorded and it will be available to you. So you'll be able to fast forward forward to where you left off. But let's have a look at isolation. So employees who are used to team lunches and check-ins over coffee may miss the social interaction with sharing a workplace. Traditional office space, gives ample opportunity for this interaction to take place. But when you are having, a remote workforce, you're not going to have it. So in a remote working environment, businesses will need to go onto digital platforms to be able to fight that isolation and make sure that everybody feels part of the team. It's really key to make sure that everybody feels part of the team, doesn't matter where they are based. Have those regular meetings. Make sure that you have daily daily updates. Make sure that you have daily communications that go out. Make sure that you have that daily visual contact with your employees, because you will be able to soon pick up if someone's enthusiasm is starting to dwindle by their body language and the way they interact in those meetings. So that is really, really key. As I've said, good culture depends on good communication, and in a remote work setting, a daily hub must be substituted by the online platform. Think about the aspects that are going to, so think about the positive, enriching aspects that you have in the workplace, and find an alternative way of putting it onto a digital platform. I know that one of our clients has, they call it Go Find Wednesday, I think it's called, where their morning meeting is, they give particular employees a challenge of having to go and find an assortment of household things that you'll find in the house, and that individual has got 60 seconds to get as much on that list as possible. This is aimed at getting that engagement to make sure that people aren't feeling, isolated and excluded from the workplace. So think about, how you are going to do that. It's quite challenging when you are replacing that face-to-face to something that you are going to be having on a digital platform. But you also need to make sure that you strike a balance, because the last thing we want is to be having a silly hour for the first hour every day. Make sure that you strike that balance by keeping your communications, your interactions, with staff, so that you're making sure that you are sharing key important information, making sure that employees keep on, agreed strategies and targets. Making sure that you remain people focused, because of course you're dealing with people, but make sure that you're also sensitive to each individual, because not everything is for everybody. Making sure you stay social. Social interaction is so key. Making sure that you transfer that social interaction to your digital platform as well. Social networking functions are the obvious. I mean, you might want to think about, using WhatsApp groups. You might want to create an employee Facebook group. But of course, don't forget about your traditional means that you may have. You might have an intranet that may be a good way that you can make sure that you stay social and you keep your engagement with your employees. Make sure that you think on multi-channel platforms, making sure that your remote workers are kept in the loop. Making sure that you use every platform that is available to you it is quite important, because not everybody is on WhatsApp, not everybody is on Facebook. So if you are going to be using the different channels, make sure that you reach out to your entire workforce as they are dispersed and working remotely. Making sure that any mandatory, so it's obvious on all your channels that you are using what is mandatory. You have to read this, you have to do something. There might be certain communications that go out which requires urgent action. Make sure that that is differentiated and separated out from your social updates. So again, have a clear communication strategy in place that you can align, your social, your business critical updates and your mandatory updates, making sure that at a glance anybody can have a look at it and know what they have to do. Get personal, making personal communications as part of your strategy will boost engagement with your personal communications. Remote employees aren't interested on what's, on the new lunch menu for people who are perhaps working in the office, if they can work in the office. They're not interested in that. They will be more interested in knowing what is important for them. Now, in bigger organizations, you may want to segment your workforce into different departments, into different regions, to make sure that any communications that go out is relevant to them. Make sure that whatever you are communicating to them resonates with them, because the more it resonates with them, the more they will feel like a valued employee, the more they will feel valued as an individual, which will again go help to boost their morale, will help them feel less isolated. So the more personal you can make it, the better. Empower your employees to give them a voice. It's really easy to think, oh, out of sight, out of mind. But it's really important to engage with employee engagement, allowing employees to communicate. You might want to have a separate communication strategy from your employees introduced into how you are going to engage. You might want to, get your managers, your line managers, or yourself to encourage employees to do their own posts. If you're, as I was talking earlier about those remote those social platforms, encourage your employees to have a voice. Make sure that they feel comfortable, that they will not be penalised for having a voice. Of course, you don't want to be encouraging everybody to have a grumble and a grumble, but it gives them an opportunity to have a voice and to put their feelings forward. Co-workers can respond to it. It might become an in-joke, but it is also an opportunity for line managers and business to see and gauge how their employees are feeling. And you may actually be able to do something to sort that, to improve that. So make it as easy as possible for every employee to have a voice and for that voice to be heard. Let's have a look at productivity. So productivity in a working from home environment demands a revised approach. With flexibility to access to the office anytime, where employers have introduced the opportunity to introduce a work-life balance through having these policies in place and allowing it, there is very little evidence that proves that the longer hours you work, the greater productivity. That is a myth. It simply does not work that way. What has actually come out is that where you have a happy employee, they work harder. So where an employee is engaged, they are, engaged, they share your vision, they are happy, they are satisfied, they will work harder for you, and productivity will naturally, flourish. But remote working and productivity relies on trust. It relies on strong relationships, and it also relies on having the right access to technology. So make sure that you have those tools to allow and to ensure that employees can do their job, their daily functions, to the best of their ability, to make them thrive in their productivity, which, as I say, will in turn benefit you ultimately. Make sure that when you go onto digital platforms, that it is a seamless experience. We all know how difficult it is to implement and manage change, but make sure that you share as much information about the digital platforms that you are going to be using, because, as I say, making it as easy as possible takes away the excuse. It takes away the excuse for the employee to say, I don't know how to do it, I can't access it, I don't know how to log on. Because again, you know, the more difficult you make it, the less engaged staff are going to be, and the more frustrated they are going to be coming because they can't log on, they can't do what they're required to do, which then again has a knock-on effect on, you're going to guess it, on morale, on, again, it will fuel that feeling of isolation. So make it as simple as possible. Centralized knowledge. Make sure that when your workforce is dispersed and are working from home, there is easy access to central knowledge, because it's easy to let critical, key, important information slip through the cracks if you don't make sure that all that information is, you know, centralized. Have a look at turning up the training dial. You know, take productivity efforts to the next level. Empower your staff to look at upskilling opportunities. Employees who have become accustomed to turning to their desk mate to ask a quick question, you know, or where can I find this? Of course, with remote working, they don't have that desk mate to ask those questions. So you need to have a look at other ways where you can upskill them. And this is easy to do. You can do it by webinars, you can do it through video messaging, you know, you can have question and answers, you can have explainer articles. So there are a number of ways where you can look at, you know, making sure that you upskill those workers who are used to bugging their colleague next to them, their desk mate, as I call them, to help them. But it will also it will fuel the culture within the organisation, which will empower employees to make sure that they meet those goals and targets that you have set to them. So let's have a look at morale. I'm on point 3. I've got to get to 5, and I promise to try and get there as quickly as I possible. I won't get there in the next 5 minutes, but if you can hang on, great. If you can't, don't worry, because this webinar is being recorded and it will come to you. So let's have a look at morale. Don't let disruption sabotage workplace morale. Even in challenging times, you can focus on cultural productivity. You will always have your individuals in your organization who are your internal ambassadors. They are your employees who are very focused on what you are wanting to do. They see the bigger picture, they're engaged, they want to be part of it, they are your ambassadors. And make sure that you utilize those ambassadors by steering them you know, towards those who perhaps don't feel that way. But more importantly, it comes from proper leadership. Lead by example. When it comes to driving culture, the impact on remote working, you know, mustn't be overlooked. But it's down to business owners to make sure that the tone of your workplace filters through to your line managers. It filters through to your internal ambassadors, and in turn it filters through to your entire workforce that is working remotely. I can't stress enough how important it is to lead by example. Encourage key players to write blogs, to get involved in that communication plan, and remain so active on those social platforms. Don't start it and then disappear. Always remain as a leader of your organization. Always remain in that forefront of your employees, so they can see that you are still engaged with them, even though they are working remotely. And this is particularly important in uncertain times, and we are in very uncertain times. You know, people are feeling extremely vulnerable, even if they are in work and they are working their normal hours. You know, there is always that sense of uncertainty at the moment, whether it be driven from the economy, whether it be driven by the success of the business, whether it be driven by other factors, because of course, don't forget, we're dealing with people who might be having other influences within their within their home life, which might be having that negative impact. So you really have a job on your hands to make sure that you lead by example, and make sure that that filters down, you know, through to your workforce. Constantly give positive reinforcement. You know, if it's coming from the horse's mouth, it's more believable than if it is coming from elsewhere. But the key thing is to keep listening, making sure that whatever outlets or feedback that might be coming back from your employees where they have shared those concerns, keep listening. It goes a long way to demonstrate that you are listening. But don't just listen, do something about it. Even if it means that you can't do something, make sure that you do actually address those concerns, even if there is nothing that you can do about it. And there's plenty of ways that you can do that through sending out customized surveys, which you can use, you know, they're all online, but you can actually use this information to determine pain points and focus on those to, you know, boost morale. Another really important thing to do when you're dealing with remote workers is ramp up your recognition. You know, the age of remote working, you know, it's easy to overlook when somebody has done well. It's easy to overlook those key employee achievements. And of course, when you don't recognize those key employee achievements, it has a knock-on effect on that morale. So really, you know, ramp up on that recognition to boost morale and boost productivity. You know, find a way to encourage, you know, recognition during these challenging times. So let's have a look at collaboration. So collaboration is win-win for everybody. Knowledge sharing is shown to boost performance. It can also double up in the duty in helping employees to socialize, and it can also help employees still feel connected to one another and to the organization. Use the digital tools to make you know, virtual team meetings, virtual team reality. Make it real. You know, so during, you know, these times, you know, make sure that you don't forget about how important that collaboration is. Digital workplaces can drive collaboration, and there are so many platforms that you can use. You know, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Meetings, you know, are one and many, and there are many out there, and I'm sure there are at least half a dozen that I haven't even thought of. But those are the most, you know, common ones. But make sure that you have this available to empower teamwork and knowledge sharing. Make sure that you have support teamwork. So in addition to fueling positive culture within your organization, it's really important to make sure that each department, each group of people that you are dealing with is I wouldn't say dealt with differently, but they are addressed differently, because everybody, each department will have different needs. So don't try and have it as a one size fits all. Make sure that you have support team network. So your support is provided to the team that you are working with. So just looking at the final, final key area where I want to focus on is making sure that you have access for all. Teamwork orientation mentally can help organizations achieve unparalleled results. It's important to look out for the needs of each employee. Everybody is individual. Having access for all means something different for everybody. Every organization should recognize that their employees are their most valuable asset, and to commit to optimizing their digital experience for all will go a very long way to make sure that you don't end up isolating, having that isolated knock-on effect, making sure that you boost that morale, making sure that they still feel part of the bigger organization, and making sure that you, you know, stay communicating with all your employees on the different platforms that you have. Culture in crisis is best looking at best practices for the worst times. You know, I've tried to jimmy you up on how you're going to be, you know, managing your remote team. But you know, in the best of times, nailing workplace culture is challenging on its own, particularly you know, when the organisation is disjointed and you have different messages, you know, it is even more challenging when you move to remote working. And we know that 2020 has been a year in itself when we were dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, which still continues as we talk. And, you know, the issues that we have to deal with becomes even more complex when we are dealing with heightened anxiety, heightened disruption, you know, heightened disruption which lurks around the corner every moment. You know, we're waiting to hear what the government tweets here. You know, lockdown strategy is going to be. You know, we don't know what that's going to be. But with the employee first view and approach, with all hands on deck approach, you know, anything is possible, even in the darkest moments. But make sure that you focus on the facts. Make sure that you, you know, don't let negativity breed uncertainty, or should I say, don't let uncertainty breed negativity. Make sure that you don't have your team scrambling to try and find out what's going on. Make sure that you have that communication strategy so everybody knows what they're going to be doing. You know, don't create chaos, create calm. And making sure that your employees are provided with that critical information, because having that critical information will share logistical insights, it will share policy changes that you may have, it will share questions and answers in real-time updates as and when that is unfolding. And make sure that you keep on top of the opportunities, because of course, you know, where there is you know, an opportunity, it needs to be taken with both hands. Comforting messages from the managing director, team leaders, you know, line managers goes a long way to show employees that you care about them, and that this is shared at all levels within your organisation. Take control what you can in a crisis situation, you know, deal with as much as what you can as it unfolds. But again, also focus on doing the best of what you can control, including your employee experience. So making sure that your employee experience is a good experience, and go the extra mile to offer, you know, the employees the information, the tools and the capabilities to make sure that they can still carry on their normal job. And of course, don't forget, we're all human. So, you know, make sure that you add that human side to it. Weaving that software approach, keeping morale high, is really key to you know, making sure that you support your workforce. And of course, unprecedented times call for unprecedented measures. And of course, COVID has presented this to us in, you know, all its glory. So I'm really conscious that I've really gone over time. So let's just have a quick look at some questions. I'm going to spend the next sort of 5-10 minutes just having a look at those questions. Thank you for all of you who have been with me today and listened to this webinar. Those who have had to go, of course, you know, you will get to this. But let's have a quick look at these questions. So we have a question from Linda. Linda, thank you. We are a small charity business struggling to survive and continue to offer services to people with learning difficulties and autism. Is the government going to replace the furlough scheme with anything similar? Linda, as I mentioned earlier, the furlough scheme is coming to an end. What has been replaced is the job support scheme. But what we are waiting for is the new local furlough scheme. So this new local furlough scheme will really be aimed at businesses that have to close because of a local lockdown. It's also aimed at the hospitality industry. So, for example, restaurants, pubs that will have to close because of restrictions that are going to be implemented. Linda, I'd love to find a solution that is going to be able to help you. but you know, at the moment, details are very limited on what this new scheme is going to look like. And as soon as we do know anything, you know, we will of course let you know. I know that's probably not the answer that you are looking for, but you know, any help and support that does become available, you will be the first person to know as we share this information with you. Steve, yes, I've dealt with you. Perfect. Not sure. So Chrissy has a question here. Okay, so Chrissy, you are not sure why you are on this webinar, but you are looking to network with HR. Chrissy, I will dig out your details and I will make sure that I invite you to some HR networking that I go to. So I will make sure I dig out your information there. So, but hopefully you have found this webinar useful. One last question as we I approached my 10 minutes where sorry, not the 10 minutes, 10 past, where I've long passed my sell-by date on being on this webinar. You have been approached by a young person who would like to join you via the Kickstart scheme. Will we be able to offer him the role, or will the job centre choose who would be selected for us? That is a very good question, and this is I've had this question come in a number of times. So Linda, what will need to happen is I would strongly suggest that we put you put your application in with through the portal. If you've only got one job application, you will need to find a group administrator who's going to administer that for you. Of course, we can do it for you, but what we will be able to do is hopefully once that application goes through, if that young person is registered with the DWP and it matches up with the job spec, the job description, you should get a list of people that meet your needs, and it'll be down to you to be able to offer the role to a candidate of your choice. So it'll be really important for this young person to get in contact with the DWP and perhaps mention to them that there is this job available, and hopefully we will be able to make the two jobs and candidates meet. So hopefully we'll be able to sort that out for you. But just a reminder, on the Kickstart scheme, you will be able to decide who you want to employ. It's not going to be a case of you are just allocated with someone, but we will need to make sure that the two tie in with each other. So I know there are a couple more questions, but I'm quite keen to make sure that you know, we can be around if there are any changes to the government scheme, in particular if there are any details in relation to the new local furlough scheme, so that I can get out there and I can share it with you. Don't forget, everybody, that we do have support for all organisations. It doesn't matter how big or how small you are, with our crisis packages. It may well be something that you just want to bounce some ideas with, get some confirmation that what you are doing is the right thing, right down to a full restructure, reorganisation, and dealing with anything and everything that comes out of it. So, you know, please do get in contact with us. Our website, of course, is www.hrforuk.com. You can drop us an email at info@hrforuk.com, or you can give us a telephone call on 01455 444 222, and one of my colleagues will be able to help you. So our next webinar is going to be on Friday, the 23rd of October at 3 p.m. I should imagine that the topic of discussion will be looking at the new furlough schemes and how to plan for local lockdowns to ensure that your business survives, and perhaps we can have a look at some restructures. But if there's anything specific you would like me to cover, please do let me know, so that I can make sure that these webinars are what you are looking for in, you know, for help and support. So don't forget, HR for UK, we are ready. We are here to help and support you. So contact us today. Just a quick reminder, telephone number 01455 444 222, email info@hrforuk.com, or go to our website at www.hrforuk.com. Do remember, we are always here for you. Thank you for your time. Have an amazing weekend, everybody, and I'll see you all back here on the 23rd of October. Bye for now.